Hello everyone. The topic for today is solve equations with rational coefficients. Right now I want you to pause the video so you can copy down your notes and then resume when you're ready. I wanted to highlight this section because this is probably the most important when it comes to the notes so that you're prepared to solve these equations. For most, this should be a review of a previous topic, which was just solving equations. But the coefficient, which is the number next to the letter, is a little trickier this time. It's not whole numbers. They're both fractions or decimals. So let's take a look at problem number 1. The way I like to look at it is this is saying that some number, which is where the variable is m, some number times 0.7 gives us 4.9. To figure out what that number is mathematically, we have to do the opposite operation. So in the problem, we have multiplication, so we've got to solve it using division. We're going to divide by whatever number is attached to the letter. So we're going to do 4.9 divided by 0.7. Once we solve that, we'll know what m is. Well, remember, since we have a decimal on the outside, we've got to move it to make it a whole number, which means we move it the same number of times on the inside. So what we're really looking at is 7 on the outside and 49 on the inside. 49 divided by 7 is 7, therefore m equals 7. Let's look at number 2. Well, some number times negative 6/18 gives us negative 1/2. Before we start doing any of the solving equation portion, I always recommend you look to see if any fractions can be simplified. Well, this fraction right here, negative 6/18, can be simplified to negative 1/3. That's going to make the numbers a little more familiar to us. So to solve it, we've got to do negative 1/2 divided by negative 1/3. Because remember, we changed negative 6/18 to negative 1/3 just by simplifying. So a couple of things to remember. One is the tic-tac-toe method, which was something like this. And remember, that means that a negative number divided by a negative number gives us a positive, which is this row right here. So the answer is going to be a positive number regardless of what we get. To solve a dividing fractions problem, we are going to, as many would say, keep, change, flip. I say flip and multiply. Negative 1/2 times negative 3/1. We multiply straight across. Negative times negative is a positive. We get 3/2, which gives us 1 1/2. Therefore, h equals 1 1/2. And because we started with fractions in this problem, it's highly recommended that we stick with fractions. Sometimes you can get a decimal, but if you have answer choices, they're going to be in fraction form, so you may as well get that practice. Looking at question number 3, we've got some number times 4 gives us negative 2.8. So to solve that, we have to do negative 2.8 divided by 4. Well, we already know our answer is going to be negative, so let's go ahead and write the negative sign so we don't forget it. And now we just have to do the dividing. 2.8 divided by 4. We don't have a number outside of the division symbol that is a decimal, so we're not moving the decimal at all. Decimal comes straight up. 4 does not go into 2, but it does go into 28 7 times. So our answer is b equals negative 0.7. Looking at a couple more examples, let's solve question number 2. We've got 2/5 equals 4/5 times c. So to solve that, we've got to divide 2/5 by 4/5. Well, we're going to flip and multiply or keep change flip, which means that we have 2/5 times 5/4. So after we do our multiplying, we get 10 over 20. And after we simplify that, we wind up with, we can divide both of those by 10. We wind up with 1/2. Therefore, C equals 1/2. There's our answer. And looking at question number 3, we have -16 equals 0.2b, which in order to solve, we need to divide. We have to do -16 divided by 0.2. So a negative divided by a positive, the answer is always negative. So we already know that our answer is negative. So let's put the negative sign there so we don't forget about it. Well, let's set up our division problem. We do have a number on the outside that is a decimal, so we need to move it to make it a whole number. We're moving that one place on the outside, so we need to move that once on the inside. Well, at this point, someone would say, well, we don't have a decimal on the inside to move. We actually do. 16 is the same thing as 16.0. So if we're going to move the decimal, we move it out there. So what we're really looking at is 2 on the outside and 160 on the inside. So when we divide 160 by 2, we wind up with 80. So B is equal to -80, which means that D is the correct answer. Now I want you to solve questions 4, 5, and 8. Bring those answers along with any questions that you may have with you to class tomorrow.